Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Investor Podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about something near and dear to our hearts, but also something that we really would like to just figure out and get away from. And that is the polarity. The polarity that you're feeling internally with your emotions, the polarity that's going on out there, which is all, we could kind of get into that, all directly and indirectly a function of the other, right? I'm going to talk about this from a perspective of myself. I'm going to talk about this from a perspective of uh, what's with this design that we continue to go through and over again. You know, we're staring the contrast in the face. Why are we doing this? And what will be probably most important to you guys is how you can get beyond it. Um, I think that this is a really timely conversation as well, even though things have calmed down in at least here in the US, they've calmed down politically in comparison to when we were back in April and we had all the tariff stuff. And then that, caused the market to drop and all that. But, there is still a lot going on, and there is a lot of, whether you agree with what's going on or not, you've still got some type of charge going on in your life. And I think that we're going deeper into this living with the charge because we are wanting and desiring and calling in, if you will, our own greater expansion into consciousness. And that is actually the path. And so if we really, really get, because I know sometimes we say this, but if we really, really get that that is the path, then can we also see in the same moment that if we don't handle the polarity in a new way, it's not actually expansion, it's coping, it's getting by, it's passing time, it's wasting time, it's slowing you down. And one of the things that we can also feel going on is the acceleration factor that is out there. And I believe that that is because we are at an expanded state of consciousness in comparison to what we used to be. And consciousness, and what I mean by that, because we're always conscious, what I mean by that is our connection with source. Because we are at a different level with that, when you are connected with source, which is the same thing as playing in the world of energy, there is no time. And you can feel this because when a baby is born, and that is just love, that is just source, there's no time. You don't feel time. When you are a sculptor and you are in your work, you don't feel time. And when you are in a conversation with someone who is close to you, that you love, and that you're feeling yourself and they're feeling themselves, meaning like when we're feeling seen, we don't feel time. And so you can look at this structure and begin to chip away at the illusion of time. I give you that it's hard to go, oh, poof, there's no time. Like, that's part of the journey here, is that we don't just typically drop into a brand new truth. We have to weave our way through it. And that's the design. That's good too, because that also causes us to calibrate. And so it's energetically more of a way to stay at ease when we're calibrating into something, rather than just, okay, this is my new truth. And the polarity is the mirror, as you know. And the mirror, it does not matter what is showing in the mirror. What matters is the entanglement within the frequency that you feel. In other words, like the relationship between you and whatever you're seeing in the mirror. And when you are entangled with something, then you're also at the mercy of it. And the way that we are designed is that when we are at the mercy of something, we want to push it away. And so it's natural that if you feel like the contrast is not your control, that is something's happening around you and you're just having to deal with and clean up, of course there would be an element of you wanting to push it away. And so once you realize that, you can just not feel bad about it anymore. There's also a cocktail of chemicals that goes on in our body that leads us, it orients us to this. You even see this, I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, but I have a microbiology degree of all things. And so I remember looking at, bacteria in the petri dish, and it's like you put a food source or sugar or something like that, and you see the bacteria and it will just migrate towards it. Like, we are also driven by, this body and this system that we're in. It's great though, because again, we have jurisdiction over that too. So, myself, I didn't sleep well last night. And I didn't sleep well because I was upset. I was emotionally entangled, which is same thing, upset, whatever, about something that it wasn't even a big deal, but it got in my head. And I didn't sleep. And then I woke up this morning. Well, I slept really poorly. And then I woke up this morning not in my normal state of, oh my God, I'm so happy I get to do this today. That's supposed to be that way. I'm not supposed to wake up happy every day. And it makes sense. And this is another thing. I'm choosing this as my truth because nothing really makes sense, to be honest. It makes sense to me that this is happening because I have taken on a lot more with work. We have a lot more projects going on. The company is expanding at a very accelerated rate. This is our biggest mastermind that I've ever run to date, and they are just getting more and more like magical and phenomenal and profound, and the depth of them. That's why it's getting bigger, right? October was our biggest revenue month of the year. I hired 2 new people. All of it, it's all the same thing. I also have made some commitments from within myself. I'm always, looking at my standards. And when I say my standards, like, what am I choosing as my highest level of being? And that's going to be higher than what I'm currently the self-expression of. But then what I'm doing is I'm calibrating myself into that. That is the work for me. That's the work I do. This is not work for me. The work that I did leading up to this, which I was just on this couch behind me doing a 20-minute meditation, and that's just a small piece of it, right? That is the actual work in the universal world. And then the result is I come here at the most open place that I can possibly be for you and for me. And there's not a comparison there. And one doesn't come before the other. It's actually all the same thing because we're one. And I have I have disentanglement practices, ways of, even I can use, eat something healthy or, lie down for 15 minutes. I know it's a function of I've been going to the gym more. I was in Costa Rica for a long time, and then I came home, and it took me a while to sort of get back into the swing of the things here. But wow, the life that I have, and I'm loving it. It's packed, and that I wouldn't choose it a different way. So it makes sense that I'm going to have polarity come up because I can't otherwise calibrate into that new standard, that new way of being. Because if I didn't have the polarity, I would just be doing the same thing over and over again. And I don't want that. So it's like you can't call people to the party and then not have food or whatever at the event. Like, I mean, this doesn't really work that way. It's like it's almost like you have to look at this as a whole project. Once you look at it as a whole project and a holistic system, then you will see that the polarity, you don't have to be happy with it. You don't have to be sad with it. The deal is to look at it because it's saying something to you. And so when I was in the meditation, I was listening to, like, if a sound would come into the space, the cat or a car or something like that. I would listen to the sound, and as it was getting closer, 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 so louder, 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 and then fading away. And so what that does is that opens me to consciousness, because it stops thought. I also have some practices where I do like a walking meditation where I stop thought. So you, as the perfect being that you are and as source, know um, how you can calibrate yourself to it. Um, what I have to do for myself is catch myself not judging the polarity, not wanting it to just stop. And, I also have some incredibly powerful people in my life who are supporting and helping and loving me right now in a way that is just absolutely profound. And they're not doing it for me. They're doing it for the way that this is impacting people, because they've seen it, they've been part of it. And I'm every time I think about that, that's like a gift to me, because I get to go back into gratitude for that. And it also keeps me very clear on who I'm working for, which is you. And I'm also, to a certain degree, working for them, because they are devoting their energetic currency and their time and all of it to something that they believe in. And so it's all working together in a way, but it takes me being able to see this in a new way, because this morning I fell back into the old self. And I could tell I was in the old self. And the way that I could tell is because the way I was being didn't fit in with the new plan, if you will. It didn't fit in with the new standard way of being. And then what I did was, I was able to, I have a meditation called Drop the Past. And I teach all of these in the mastermind, by the way. So you guys, it's funny because the mastermind, you're a bit on a journey with me through all of this too. So by dropping the past, which would be the stories that were weighing me down, which are the same thing as a perception, what that's doing is that is then calibrating the frequency that I'm at. And that frequency is determining the opportunities that I have access to. And so by knowing that, and you know this not because it's knowledge, you know this because you're the observer. And you choose to be the observer, by the way, and you choose to be the observer in any moment, and it doesn't take time. So by seeing that, I'm like, I'm the old self. Now I do go into, oh, well, I shouldn't have done this last night. I shouldn't have done that on Monday, which led up to this, and da da da. There is a part of my mind, because it's all coming from the mind. There is a part of my mind that I still like to indulge. And that's just where I am. I'm sure Eckhart Tolle probably doesn't need to do all that. I don't compare myself. I'm kind of like, this is where I am in it. And if I want to do that for 30 minutes, sometimes it goes longer than that, or sometimes it's 2 minutes. And I'm really just making up time, because I'm not even timing this really. When I'm speaking about this, I'm saying that's what it feels like. And it's interesting, because when you think about time, something that feels like 2 minutes to me and feels like a day to you, like time is just such a perception, right? Like I do Israeli jiu-jitsu, which is called Krav Maga. And it's like when my coach puts on a timer for 2 minutes, I feel like I'm going to die. That does not feel like 2 minutes. That feels like at least 5 to 8 minutes. Or jump rope. I jump rope I'm not up to 5 minutes yet, but I can now jump rope for 3 minutes in a row. And that's just, oh my God. The difference in 3 minutes and 5 minutes when you're jumping rope, horrible. But, leading back to that, I have been packing in all of these workouts. And so there's been an energy depletion. And there's a part of me that was like a little pissed off this morning about, well, I want to be the old self for a little while. When? But what did I agree to do? I agreed to hold a higher state of being in my life. I also agreed to, I'm going to take on some of these projects that I have, and I'm not going to travel as much. I'm going to be more open and allow other people to help me. That's really why these people have come into my life, and that's why I just hired 2 new people. I'm now doing, weekly photo shoots. I'm doing things that used to be like a kind of a drop-in project that I had to put in all of this energy into. I'm like, how can I just create consistency with certain things, which make them become effortless? And then I don't fly to California for a photo shoot right now in my life. Instead, just locally, someone comes by and snaps a few shots of me and my horses. And then I can use that for, we're building a new website. You know what I'm saying? There's like, I'm looking at all these different threads that are going on in my life, but I'm looking at them from the perspective of the new standard. And that's what's key. What you're really doing is everything comes from your starting place. And my starting place this morning was the old self. Had I let that go on, which is what I used to do in the past, is let that go on, and then I would just wait until something changes in my circumstances, happens to, and then I'd feel better. Well, I live in reverse now because I'm under full 100% awareness that I'm creating the circumstances. So I go back and I look at that, but I don't dwell in that. Okay, I did this, I did that, because it's also by design. Like I said, we're talking about the mirror here, and it's good that I'm in the contrast. Now, your contrast is likely to do with money. When you are in that relationship with, and you're feeling that in your body, that fear and scarcity, how do you change your starting place from that? Because that is the most important work that you can possibly do. You can feel the energy of other people when they walk in the room, right? And so people feel the energy of you when you're talking about money or asking for money or anything to do with it, right? We are getting so energetically tuned that we are, to some degree, to the point where when someone's thinking something, either we're thinking it from far away or we're feeling them. We're reading it through the lines of their conversation and their energy and their tone and their demeanor. It's quite fascinating how we're moving into this whole world. I use all of this in order to do the same thing with the market. So I can feel the market. I can feel what's coming up in 2026. I can feel what's happening right now. And I just make decisions based on that. And none of them are ever in a rushed way. I don't even remember. Who knows the time? I mean, could be 20 years. I don't know. Have I ever made a rushed, frenzied financial decision? Because that's just not my starting place. As far as if something comes up with money in my life, like my taxes ended up being more than I thought, I'm like, okay, so what new state of being am I choosing so that takes care of itself? Like, I'm the director, out here's the orchestra, and money is the result of that. And every cell in my body knows that. So I don't have to fight that truth. I don't have to be in the contrast of that. However, there are other things in my life that get me into contrast, like especially relationships. And that's the same thing, right? It's that same spot in your body, and you do have a relationship with money. So going back to this, how do you change your starting point with that? Well, you can't change your starting point until you identify and uncover and shine the light on the illusion. Now, this is a lot of the work that we do in the mastermind and in SI Advanced to a certain degree as well, is coaching through things and giving real life scenarios so that you can see your own illusion and your own hypocrisy. Once you begin to see the hypocrisy in the things that you're doing, we were laughing yesterday on the mastermind because we were all just seeing how ridiculous we are. then what happens, even just talking about it, you can tell my energy shifted. What happens is there's a lightness of being. And you see the laughing Buddha, right? It's like we're so ridiculous. I mean, we are out here, we walk into the room, we tell everybody our story, or, people tell me a lot of their money stories, right? I do this because this is why this, and this is what I did, and da 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 da. So we walk in the room, tell everybody our story, and then we do our best job to not be that story anymore. And we want them to see us as the new way. It's so ridiculous what we do. Um, and the more we do this actually as a collective, like the more I see that like that's really kind of like the new form of support. Nobody wants advice. Like your advice to me and my advice to you is garbage because it's all based on my experience and my circumstances. What we're really wanting is a support system and some guidance. And that will accelerate us because then we can integrate that. And there's an embodiment that happens. And when you embody something, that is what naturally raises that standard. Like you can calibrate your way into a standard, but the embodiment is what causes you to be the self-expression full-time of that standard. So one way that we can do this, and this is kind of a micro exercise, is you can already, like with full, I'll say atomacy, decide how you're going to feel at 1:00 today. Let's say it's like 9:00 in the morning. And that's just the way that it is. And if you can decide that and have that be your truth with the same energy behind it as you're just not going to let your kid walk out in the street. It's a non-negotiable. That's just happening. If you can put that type of energy behind it, which this is always a state of allowing and openness that you are. So all the spiritual work that you've done is now coming up to the front line and getting to actually be put in play, by the way, to call more wealth in. So you're open and you go vertical with that. Well, from that starting place, that becomes like the invisible tether that orients your way of being and your decisions from 9 a.m. to that point. Now, if you're okay with the fact that you're going to fall off base, likely a lot of times during that, and it becomes your work to only orient and roll up to the 1:00 feeling, then what you'll do is you'll be training yourself to have a diminished significance to the polarity that's going on in your life. It's like, Eckhart Tolle talks about, he's like, he's on the emotional spectrum, but instead of going to the highs and lows and getting stuck, it's a bandwidth, and he'll go up and he blips back down, right? And he mainly stays in that middle ground because that's your power. And that middle ground is also, you cannot be that middle ground unless you come back to the present moment. So you see how this is all designed for you. And so what I'm inviting you to do is to use money because to create a feeling, what would that feeling be equated to if you had a certain amount of money or vice versa, right? I'm inviting you to do that so that money is the underlying desire as a function of feeling, not as a function of amount, because then that always conjures up a how-to story. But instead of, basing this just on the principles of, we used to just say, or somebody used to say, just create a feeling and sit on the couch and it'll come to you. What I do in the Spiritual Investor is it's all about the bridge. And so it's pulling down the energy, going across the bridge and putting it back into the 3D world, you as a new state of being. And so that's the difference here. By doing this micro exercise, you are bookending the process. And it allows you, if you are willing to be the observer both within and on the outside of it, it allows you to lead your life as an experiment rather than being stuck in time. Because what most people are going to do is try and get as much done as they can as possible, as possible, as possible. Let's say 9 a.m., 10 a.m. And then they're going to start to feel their exhaustion. And then something's not going to get done. And then they get a phone call that distracts them, blah, 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 blah. And then they look at the results that they achieved and they judge themselves based on that. But that's always starting with lack. Now, there are those times where you get that done and you feel better and you check that box. But I would argue you're still at the mercy of the circumstances, because what if something does happen circumstantially around you and you don't get that list done? If your feeling is dependent on the list, then you're not controlling the world is controlling you. However, if your feeling is dependent on your jurisdiction and your connection with source and what you've already decided, no one can take that away from you. And you're just going to get better and better at building into it. And as you move into money neutrality and start to live in money neutrality, what you'll find is that money will come to you in an effortless way from new places, because you won't be blocking all of this. Your ability to receive goes way, way up when you're doing something like this. And it goes up because you're not, like I said at the beginning, you're not bracing so much. It's like when you're looking at the contrast as, oh my gosh, I don't want that, then of course you're pushing it away from you. So what you're doing is you're using energy, and you can't actually use energy effectively until you call it into you. And I would say the effectiveness is on a scale of that distance. So consider how this weaves into your life. I'm always like, have a takeaway from this and go practice it, because that is the work, and the new paradigm is the practice. And the work in the old paradigm was effort and time. And so we have to realize that we're not in this world to not do the work. But the work has changed, and until you start to value, and this is where it comes in, that you can look at your relationship as the word work before and then the word work now. You may want to even investigate, do you use the same word? Because if you use the word work and you start to feel like ugh, your starting place has changed. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's your language, and really it's your choice that is causing you to invisibly, you don't realize that you're really doing this. Most people don't go, hold on, I need to look at what my starting place is before they do everything, right? It's just happening. But as you do a practice, then you'll start to be the observer of it. And so what happens is you are gaining access to the answers, because the answers are all there for you. It's just that you don't have access to them. And as I've said, as your frequency rises, which it's not accurate that it rises, but as your frequency shifts up, you have greater access to answers and opportunities and all that, as a function of your normal way of being, which is equivalent to your new standard, which is equivalent to what you've calibrated into, which is a function of your entanglement to the circumstances. So, so much love to you. Thank you for being here with me. We have a new mastermind round that is going to start in 2026. If you guys want more info about that, you can join the SI Club, or you can sign up for, just go to thespiritualinvestor.com/SI report. And that's a free monthly report. And I talk about the market and different things. And you'll get notified about the new go round. All right. So much love to you guys.